Now, when we're looking at things like population genetics, it is very, very rare that populations will follow the rules that we just talked about with the Hardy-Weinberg law. And the Wallace-Darwin concept of this natural selection can be thus summarized as follows. Individuals of a species are going to exhibit variations in phenotype. Many of these variations are heritable, and they're going to be passed on to their offspring. Organisms tend to reproduce in exponential fashion. More offspring are going to be produced than can survive. There is a struggle for survival. And because of that, some phenotypes are going to be more successful at survival than others, and those that survive are going to be able to reproduce at higher rates. So because of this consequence of natural selection, the mating is not going to be random. It is instead going to follow this, typically going to follow natural selection. So natural selection is going to be the principal force. It's going to help shift allele frequencies within large populations. And it is one of the most important agents of evolutionary change. However, there's others as well. So if we're looking at the outcome of different types of selection, or different degrees of selection, against a non-lethal recessive allele A. And what we can see is that if something is a very, very strong selection, okay, that frequency of the allele A is going to be selected against very rapidly. Within maybe about 100 generations, it probably is going to disappear. Versus if something's going to be a weak degree of selection against it, after even 1,000 generations, it might drop off a little bit, but you're not going to see a huge selective pressure against it. And then you can see here, these are going to be some intermediate values. This might have a somewhat strong selection against it, medium strong, somewhat weak against it. So there's different types of selection. Directional selection is going to shift the phenotypic curve of a population, and what it's going to do is it's going to select in favor of some extreme phenotype. Disruptive selection is going to lead a balance between two or more contrasting phenotypic forms in a population, and stabilizing selection is going to favor the intermediate phenotypes. So let's look at maybe some mice here. Okay, let's say in the original population there were a whole range of colors, from this very white color to a medium gray color to a dark gray color. In the original population, most of these individuals were this medium gray color. However, over time, they may have evolved. If there was a directional selection, let's say there was a new ice age, let's say new ice age, yeah, and there was pressure, most of the ones that would survive would be this very light white color because there would be more snow on the ground. Now let's say there's global warming and there's less snow around, so this white color is not really an advantage. Instead, this dark color would be more of an advantage because it could blend in a little bit better with the background. And in this case, this directional selection is going to select for these darker colored mice. And they would stick out like a sore thumb against that lighter colored background, and vice versa. In disruptive selection, it's going to be selecting for either color, but not that medium color. So in this case, maybe some areas get colder and some areas get warmer, and so in some areas this mouse is going to be selected for, in other areas this one would be selected for. There's a great video that you should watch on the next link, and that is going to talk about mice that evolved to be different colors on volcanic rock in Arizona. In stabilizing selection, this would be an example where mice that happen to be this medium brown color would be the most selected for. Another example of the stabilizing selection would be something like infant weight at birth. Infants that are very high birth weight may have difficulty being born, thus they may have difficulties during the delivery and cause problems not only for the mom but also for themselves. Infants that are a very low birth weight also similarly can have many different problems. They may not be fully developed or other problems like that. Infants that are at a good healthy weight, usually 7 to 8 pounds or so, are going to really be selected for in that particular case. Anything too big may be due to reasons like maybe the mom had gestational diabetes and the baby simply grew too large. Maybe it was due to genetic reasons and the baby grew too large. It may be difficult for that woman to pass that baby through the birth canal. It may need to have some invasive procedures performed like C-section. On the other extreme to be selected against would be the low birth weight. And again, these would be individuals, they may be sick, they may have other problems with development that may cause them to be just a little bit smaller than would otherwise normally be healthy.